I think nowadays it's so easy to be successful, but the only thing that holds people back would be that they feel cringe doing something new or trying out something new that nobody else is doing. Now nobody's laughing anymore. Now everybody wants to start their own TikTok career. So and then later on, when I was studying, TikTok was this great new app, and nobody kind of believed in it. People were laughing at me when I told them about TikTok. I was working at a ad agency back in the day, and when I told them about, hey, we should go on TikTok, they were all like, TikTok is only for teenagers, it's never going to work for brands. And I was sort of the only one in my circle that was believing in this thing, and I just started posting, started making horror content there in the beginning. Like I said, also all my friends from university were kind of like making fun of it.
Views like exploding. I was like, geez, man, even had 1 million views.
Yeah.
So what do you think you understood better about TikTok, like for example me?
I would not claim that I understand anything better than you did, but for me, since I had nothing to lose, I didn't have any well-running Instagram channels or something. I just thought, well, I could just try out this new platform and see if it works for me, see what I can do there. And I think it was just this, explorative spirit where I didn't really have anything to lose, and I could just be among the first who were trying it out. So I think,
Is there someone who is still trying to make proud?
I mean, like I said, my mom. I totally want to make my mom proud. That's very important for me. I told her once that I'm going to buy her a house, but I promised this to her when I was 8 years old, and I keep to this promise.
You've become an inspiration for many students who are studying, and I heard your name already mentioned quite a few times.
That's an honor.
And what would you say to them? How important is work-life balance? How much sacrifice do you have to do to become an entrepreneur in these days?
I think if you're starting your career thinking about how you can optimize your work-life balance, then you're probably not in the right career. Because if you are, you wouldn't be thinking about it.
Welcome to a new episode of Once Upon a Student, a place where we uncover the untold stories of extraordinary individuals. Today we sit down with Vecsei, founder of Marswalk, the #1 TikTok agency in the DACH region. The company he started while still a student is now operating across 6 markets with a team of over 40 people, a global creator network, and the trust of brands from Coca-Cola to Givenchy. Marswalk became a cultural translator between boomers and zoomers, helping established companies speak to a new generation with different needs. But the part the world doesn't see is honestly the one I'm most interested in. The young guy behind the agency, the person who had to grow into the role the world now sees. Welcome to Once Upon a Student, Victor.
Thanks for having me, Machi. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well, so let's get into it. Victor, if you had to choose one word who you were as a person before founding Marswalk, which word would it be?
I'd probably say I was very hungry. So in a sense of like, I was hungry to achieve something. I was hungry to leave a mark on this world. So I was always striving to do something, but I didn't quite know what. And when I had the opportunity to do something great with Marswalk and kind of like, change the way things work, that was sort of perfect for me, and that was a perfect opportunity. So yeah, I think that's what I would probably say.
And when have you discovered this hunger?
I would say probably ever since I was a child. I was always very excited about, doing something that will have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 14 years old, I started making YouTube videos with my friends because
so cool.
I was a big fan of YouTubers. I noticed of German YouTubers, and I noticed we didn't have any bigger YouTubers in Austria, and I wanted to do something similar. And so I got my friends together and we founded this YouTube channel where we did comedy videos. And that was sort of, I would say, my first bigger project, but also even before that in kindergarten, I still had projects where I wanted to change something within the kindergarten system with my friends. And we had this little group where we,
kindergarten?
It would actually be after school care. So it wouldn't be, kindergarten wouldn't be the right word, but it's like sort of after primary school, the place where your parents drop you off to be able to focus on work. And so I was there with my friends and we were planning some little things here and there. So I was always, into changing the way systems worked.
It's very fascinating. And before you ever build a company, what did you actually crave? Because you were hungry, you were curious. So what was the end goal that young Victor has seen at that time?
Well, I mean, like I said, I didn't have the big picture plan or something, but I always knew like the way things were I always felt like they could be better, right? So, whether that was in after school care or whether that was at university, when I started with my own TikTok channel, as a student here at WU, and TikTok came around the block, and I discovered that this could be a new big thing for me, right? The same way I had done these YouTube videos with my friends when I was a teenager. Although I hadn't been quite successful, I noticed that, maybe a new platform would be the chance for me right now, to make sure that Austria also has better content, and that we have sort of a representation on this platform. And then, TikTok came around, and I thought to myself, what could I do there? And then I came up with this concept of making horror videos, because I saw like there was no horror content on the platform yet, and I'm a big horror movie fan. So I thought, okay, how about I combine my skills from back then with my passion for horror? And I started my own TikTok channel, which really rapidly grew into like 80,000 followers within like 3 or 4 months. And that was sort of the basis for everything that I'm doing now.
Oh, I still remember these days. I think COVID hit it
Right.
back then.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
everyone was just curious to start off at TikTok because we had nothing to do at homes.
Yeah.
And I remember because we were studying together actually, and
Exactly.
I started like everyone else also a TikTok channel. But honestly, I don't think this platform was built for my humor or whatever. But I saw your views like exploding. I was like, geez, man, you had 1 million views.
Yeah.
So what do you think you understood better about TikTok, like for example me?
I would not claim that I understand anything better than you did. But what I would say is that I think the reason why I was successful is probably because I was just among the first that was trying out this new platform. And I think, as far as I know your story, you were already involved with Instagram. So you already were running some successful Instagram pages. Yeah. So for you, from your position, it probably made sense to like wait a bit, see how this platform developed, and see if it was actually feasible for you to continue your work there. But for me, since I had nothing to lose, I didn't have any well-running Instagram channels or something. I just thought, well, I could just try out this new platform and see if it works for me, see what I can do there. And I think it was just this, explorative spirit where I didn't really have anything to lose, and I could just be among the first who were trying it out. So I think, I think as a pioneer, you always get better chances than as somebody who, comes in second place. Mm-hmm. So I think that was probably my advantage.
Yeah. For us, I think it was, we just tried the same that was working on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know already the systems, and then you ask yourself, why is it not working on TikTok?
Yeah.
And I think there are many companies out there who have asked themselves the same question.
Exactly, right? I mean, that's a big issue because it was a completely new platform and had completely new rules.
Yeah.
It was tough for people to figure that out, especially when you need to, reach certain KPIs on that platform, when you need to make money, when you need to reach business goals. You don't have a lot of time to experiment. And so it's great to have somebody by your side that has already gone through the experimentation period for you, can tell you, show you the ropes.
And how did that switch happen from being a creator, getting millions of views, to making the decision, hey, I want to help other companies now? Well,
I would say this school was pretty much one of the reasons behind it, to be honest, because I'd studied business at WU, and I think being in an environment where a lot of people were thinking pretty big about what they want to do with their careers. Some of my friends wanted to go into consulting, others wanted to go into banking, others wanted to be entrepreneurs. And I could really see that, this environment inspired me to think big and think bigger than just being an influencer, and think more of like, how can I actively help other people with that skill and with that reach that I've built. And so for me, I think it was always kind of clear that I wanted to have a team, and I wanted to have a real impact more than just, doing advertising and promoting certain products. But I really wanted to, have a greater impact than that. And then for me, like, entrepreneurship kind of came in second nature. It was a logical next step to continue my work that I'd started with TikTok to bring it to companies. Yeah.
Man, you're doing so amazing.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
I'm actually super curious because I know it from our business. We are like in the art business. It's super difficult to get clients who trust you from the beginning, especially when you're super young, going out from university, just finished your degree. So how were the first talks with possible clients?
Mm-hmm.
Because I assume they haven't reacted like super I was like an open going towards TikTok. So what was your approach to them and how have you handled it?
Yeah, well, I would say probably the first clients that we've ever spoken to, they were very innovative. So I mean, if I remember correctly, the first one of my first clients was Espresso Mobil, and this is like a big company in Austria. They have these little, espresso cars where you can get yourself a coffee, right? And they're in all major locations in Austria and in Vienna. And what we did is we just I remember I texted them on Instagram and I was like, hey, I like your Instagram presence, but I saw that you didn't have a TikTok profile. Do you want me to go over like how I could help you, how a TikTok profile could help you reach a younger audience? And they were actually quite open to the idea. So, they invited me to their office, and we had a discussion, and I kind of showed them the advantages of how TikTok could work for them. And then, made them an offer that they kind of couldn't refuse. Very affordable back then. And that was our first client, and that's kind of how we kicked off. And yeah, went well from there. So, I mean, the demand grew and grew. And once you have, sort of reference experiences already and reference clients, it's also easier to get your next clients, right?
Yeah. And what gave you the confidence then to fully commit to Marswalk?
I mean, I guess, I didn't really have that many other options, I mean, I was creator also on the one hand. I had my business degree on the other hand, but as opposed to my classmates, I hadn't done a lot of internships or something like that. So I probably wouldn't have gotten, a top tier position with a top 3 consulting company. And that was always, I always expected myself to, do something outstanding. And I figured, okay, probably the area where I can do that the most would be with my business, because I've built something that's, kind of exceptional and that not a lot of people are in the position after graduating, that they already have built a business with. I think we already had our first employees and we had our first clients. And it kind of made sense for me to just continue this and go all in because I didn't really have any other options. I didn't have any offers or something for a full-time position. And I think that's great. In hindsight, I'm very happy and grateful that I was kind of forced to do this. And yeah, so because that also helped me to fully commit. I see now when I talk to other entrepreneurs that are still having a part-time job or have a very extensive hobby where they're not really able to go all in. Although the idea would be great, they have a great character, they have great talent, but they're not able to go all in because, they have too many other options, and they have, it's too safe for them, right? If you're in a position where you have nothing to lose, then it's much easier, right, to go all in and to commit fully to the cause, right?
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
And connecting Zoomers with Boomers had become your guiding principle within the company.
Yeah.
When did you realize that bridging those worlds can become not only a successful business, but you can actually help both sides of the equation?
Yeah, I mean, I think right from the get-go, we thought about, okay, what can we be more than just your regular, next door agency? How can we bring actual impact? And what's going to be our mission, right? Because, just making cool TikTok videos and promoting products didn't cut it for us. And so we thought, okay, sort of what's the greater societal purpose we can fulfill here? And what I know from my personal story, right, when I talk to my grandpa, for example, I always need to explain him how his phone works or how social media works or how WhatsApp works, right? He's one of the people that would send me these long, like, WhatsApp messages where he tells, which claim that when you don't send it to 2 other people, something bad is going to happen. So he was really, falling for these kind of internet scams. So I'm always, when I see him, I'm always trying to explain him, okay, you don't want to click on any links. You don't want to send any messages that don't have a purpose, right? And I think from seeing this experience was like, okay, I'm kind of doing the same thing with my company. I'm helping people, in this case, like business people that, had no clue of how TikTok works. I'm kind of showing them this new world. I'm explaining them how, like, the youth of today is operating what's hot with the teenagers at the moment, and I kind of like opened them up new possibilities business wise, as well as also in their private lives. They, after we had consulted them how TikTok worked, they could have better conversation with their children, for example, about social media trends, for example. So I think this, what I did privately, or what was important for me privately, helping older people understand, like, don't lose touch with the younger generation, was something that I felt like we should do on a big level too, and we should do on a business level too. And that's what ended up being our purpose, and something that we still, are proud of today, that we can help all these established companies think like the young generation, connect them with the young generation, and also allow the young generation to be targeted in a way where they can really relate to the message of, a more established company,
What do you think do creators this day get wrong when they, for example, don't have any TikTok knowledge and they just release ads? What do you think they don't misunderstand about the younger generation?
I don't think it's a big issue for creators. I think creators are usually the ones that are well off because, to be a creator, you're usually a consumer first, and you've kind of been on the platform for a while before you start posting your first videos. So just you catch a vibe. So usually, even if there's older 50-year-old people, for example, that are starting their TikTok channels, when they're doing it, they're usually aware of how it works, or they just are so clueless that it's funny again to watch them. And that again, is beneficial for them. What's more difficult would be, like I said, an established company where you have a marketing manager who's been in the industry for a decade or something, has been familiar with Facebook, knows how Instagram works, but just, doesn't have time to really, think about this new platform, TikTok, and figure out how it works. But is forced by, the market to use this platform in order not to lose touch with the young generations. And then they're kind of facing this dilemma. Okay, I need to post on Facebook, I need to post on Instagram, I need to do these 10 other things. And now I also need to figure out this new platform, which I'm not using privately, because mainly, mostly these people are already on Instagram and on Facebook privately, so they kind of know it, but they're just not in the generation for TikTok. And so then it's really helpful to have a partner that kind of shows you the ropes, shows you how TikTok works, and helps you, find a smooth entry into this world.
Guides you along the way.
Exactly, guides you along the way. Exactly.
And how did your journey unfold? We've spoken about the beginnings, and we've spoken already the current status quo. And tell me about the journey.
Yeah, like I said, I started out when I was 14, started with my first YouTube videos with my friends. Kind of wasn't that successful back then. I had like 80 followers, but I had like a lot of fun doing it. And I kind of learned about how to work in a team and how to, how to manage productions, video productions. And then later on, when I was studying, TikTok was this great new app, and nobody kind of believed in it. People were laughing at me when I told them about TikTok. I was working at an ad agency back in the day, and when I told them about, hey, we should go on TikTok, they were all like, TikTok is only for teenagers. It's never going to work for brands. And I was sort of the only one in my circle that was believing in this thing. And I just started posting, started making horror content there in the beginning. Like I said, also all my friends from university were kind of like making fun of it, and we're like, hey, what are you doing with this platform? But I kept doing it, and I grew rather successful, and then used my reach and my experiences to monetize off the platform, and found a business and create jobs. And now nobody's laughing anymore. Now everybody wants to start their own TikTok career. So I remember vividly when I was already, quite established on TikTok, and I was already having my first clients, how then slowly the people that back then had told me like, oh no, this is not going to work, this is never going to work, started making their own videos. And it kind of showed me that, in order to be successful, sometimes you need to go over this period of cringeness, like I would say. Like, I think nowadays it's so easy to be successful, but the only thing that holds people back would be that they feel cringe doing something new or trying out something new that nobody else is doing. And I think that's something that you really need to overcome, and you need to have to some extent. If you don't have this period of cringeness in your life, where it's very hard, and you feel sometimes a bit ridiculous doing it, but you keep pushing and you keep working at it, and then eventually it's going to work out. And then that's kind of what laid the foundation. And we grew the business from there. Grew it into, like you said, now I think it's 44 employees at the moment. We have 2 offices, one office in Vienna, another office in Germany, in Berlin. And we're working with some of the biggest brands in the world. And they also choose us every day. They have this choice from that many agencies, but they choose us because we are, again, and we keep on being the ones that are not afraid to try out new stuff with them, that are not afraid to fail, that are not afraid to, set them up with the latest trends and not something that's very safe, but also try out something that's a bit more, risky, but more rewarding eventually. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I would say, that's kind of my journey. Yeah.
And was there any ad campaign that made you think twice before posting it?
Well, I mean, usually whatever we do is being approved by the client. So there's nothing that we do that's where you're not calculating with risk. So, I mean, sorry. Some of the work that we're doing is basically meant to be risky, and it's, the client as well as us are fully aware that this is something that's, more uncommon, more unusual. And we know that in order to be successful in marketing and in communication, you need to take certain risks, right? So, because if you're doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, you're not going to be successful. So, in order to stand out, you sometimes need to take a certain risk, right? And I remember we did a campaign, for example, for a producer of. There's actually a meat producer who wanted to, build a vegan brand, right? So they're coming from being one of the biggest meat producers in Austria, and they wanted to build up this vegan brand of, meat replacement products that would taste like meat, look like meat, also be called sausages, but just like, meat replacement sausages, right? And what we did for them is we ran a campaign where a lot of influencers tried out their product and sort of gave their genuine opinion, and then other influencers would react to that. So we wanted it to be controversial because we didn't, want the influencers to just be like, oh yeah, this is a great product, I really like it. But we wanted them, even if they didn't like it, just to clearly state, hey, yeah, it's interesting, I just tried it, I'm not sure about the taste, and then have other influencers that really liked it react to that, so we could stir up some emotions, we could cause some conversations, right? And that was kind of risky because usually, right, when you have a brand, you want them to talk positively, you want influencers to talk about how great the product is, how much they enjoy using it, how great it tastes, right? And usually brands are never willing to try out something like this. But, we were lucky with this client. This client was definitely willing to try out something new and try out this opportunity. And it worked really well. I mean, we achieved, I think, over 4 million views. We had a 9% conversion rate, and we were even nominated with this campaign for a advertising prize for the best, for the biggest TikTok campaign in Austria, which we won. And it worked really well. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You mentioned one word that stayed quite a lot. It's about getting attention, controversy.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're balancing on a sword's edge.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, first of all, it's very important to have a good and clear conversation with your client about how much risk you are willing to take and why you're doing certain things, right? Because you don't want to be, managing somebody else's money to do whatever crazy stunt without them knowing about it. So it's super important to, be in the same boat and also clearly communicate with the client, okay, what we're going to do now might be a bit unconventional, but we do this because if you want to achieve sort of the level of return that you told us, you need to take a bit of a bigger risk with that budget, right? So it's always about how much budget does the client have and what kind of objective does the client have. And if the client has a small budget but a large objective, you really need to be very creative and very very I guess, outgoing, and then outgoing with your communication in order to you just need to take bigger risks in order to achieve the returns that the client wants, right? So if the client has a big goal, has a lot of budget, you don't need to be so risky with your communication. But I think that's the most important thing. And then you also need to tell the client bigger risk also means that sometimes it cannot work out. I mean, we never really have any campaign where we have, we're actively triggering hate or shitstorms or something like that. That never really happened to us, luckily. Can happen to some brands if they try out new things, but usually we have a good feeling about what's going to work and what's not. And so I think that's always the way to go, right? And then I think the biggest risk that you can face is that it just doesn't work out and people are not talking about the brand the way you want them to talk about the brand. And
I mean, having clients as big corporations, as clients as you have, I think you have to have this trust already.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they need to trust you and you need to trust them, and you need to operate as a team, and they need to know what you're good at. You need to know what they have, what kind of guidelines they have to follow. And then in the end, you need to find a good common ground to come up with some new creative ideas. Yeah.
And tell me more about your personal life, because you built such a huge company with honestly a lot of success, and you already told us how you managed to turn a creator career into a huge entrepreneurial career. So tell me, how does Victor look like behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my private life is pretty much focused around being the best version for my company. So I really want to be successful with my venture, and I want my clients to do well, and I want my employees to do well. And I take it upon me to, use my free time so I can, find the energy, find the good mood that I need in order to have a successful week with my team. And what I found for me, what really, helps me to kind of like relax in my free time, get my mind off work, would definitely be sports. So I'm a big advocate for doing sports. I love going to the gym. I've been going to the gym ever since I was 14 years old when I first discovered about it. Right? I was watching these rapper videos where they were, talking about going to the gym and getting big. And I was really inspired by this. And I begged my mom to get me a subscription to a gym, sign me up, give me a membership. And I was probably among the first of in my high school who was going to the gym, was actually doing this. And I've been going to this gym ever since. I might not be the most jacked guy ever, but I mean, that was never really the goal. It was always about, just being healthy and feeling comfortable in your own body. And I've also recently I've picked up swimming. I think 3 years ago when I was on my exchange semester in the US, I found out how much fun swimming can be, and I picked up swimming. So I really love going swimming with my friends. And then I think something that I also like to do in my free time is just, I think you need to, in order to be a good advertiser and like sort of know how things are working, you really need to travel a lot, and you need to be a consumer of many products too, right? So what I really like to do sometimes is just, stroll around some shopping street with my friends, and then, check out some different stores, check out what kind of products they're having, check out, whenever there's something, a new innovative brand launching in a city, I go there, I check out their stores, I check out their marketing. I'm just really interested in this in general, and it really helps me, I get inspired by this, by seeing like, I was in London recently, for example, and I saw this, I saw the way, they design their supermarkets, which I found super intriguing. And that's something that, I like to bring then to my supermarket clients and be like, okay, so I saw this in London, maybe we can do this in Vienna too. And it's stuff like this that I really,
It's awesome because you learn also from so many cultures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's also great. I mean, because, sometimes we do stuff, right? We work for Dr. Oetker, for example, which is a big, producer of dairy products in Germany, Austria. And they wanted to promote their pudding. They have a vanilla pudding that used to be very popular with younger people, and they wanted to get this popular again because kind of they saw people are not buying their pudding anymore. And then we thought about, okay, how can we make this attractive? And I knew from TikTok Japan that they had a trend currently going on where people would, use pudding and put it into a balloon, and then they formed a pudding balloon out of this, and then it looked really cool, and they put like chocolate sauce on top of it. It looked like really cool. It was very fancy, very chefy. And we thought like, okay, we should do this too. And then we launched an influencer campaign where influencers were actively, doing the same thing, making these TikTok balloons, and it went really viral. It achieved a lot of newsletter signups, and was one of the most creative campaigns at TikTok back in the day. And if I probably wouldn't have tried that out if I hadn't traveled to Japan and had seen this recipe there. Yeah,
It's a crazy idea.
mm.
And you've become an inspiration for many students who are studying right now.
Oh wow, that's good to hear.
I can say that because I'm going to a lot of events, and I heard your name already mentioned quite a few times.
That's an honor.
And what would you say to them? How important is work-life balance? How much sacrifice do you have to do to become an entrepreneur in these days?
I mean, I would say, I think, again, I'm not a big fan of this concept. I think we've heard it a couple of times. I hear it everywhere I go. How, you don't want to have your work and then you want to have your life. And these are two separate things because you spend so much time at work that it becomes your life. And if you're under the shower thinking about your business, are you working or are you living, right? So I think the term is difficult. I think what's less a problem than the term is like the asking, like even asking the question of like, okay, how do I optimize for work-life balance, right? I think that's something that you shouldn't ask yourself if you're in your early 20s or if you're in your 20s in general. I think you should find something that you're passionate about, and you should do something where you can have an impact, and then you should do as much of it as you can, as much as you feel like it's healthy for you. And if you're very ambitious and you really want to, go somewhere, if you really want to go places, you should definitely work-life balance should be an afterthought, right? I mean, I'm not saying everybody should, get a burnout and everybody should become an entrepreneur and hustle 24/7. But what I'm saying is like, I'm not starting a new activity with, the afterthought of like, okay, how can I relax doing this? Or how can I like maximize my time not doing it, right? I mean, you don't start playing soccer and immediately your second thought is like, okay, how can I, avoid playing soccer as much as I can? And how can I take as much time off being soccer as I can? No, you started because you love soccer, and then you get into this thing and it's fun, and you play as much as you can, and you play every second of it, and you don't count your time, and you're not thinking about, okay, how can I optimize for my breaks now? How can I take longer breaks? But you think, okay, I'm loving to play soccer right now. I just want to become the best soccer player ever, or the best soccer player for myself. And I think that's the right approach to take. And then later on, right, if you've already achieved something to some level, right? I mean, I'm 5 years into the game now. I'm 5 to 6 years into the game. Of course, I'm thinking about, okay, how can I also find more time for my friends? How can I find more time for my family? How can I, how can I have the most amount of fun in my private life? I'm thinking about these things now, but I've already built up something, and now I'm thinking, okay, how can I carve out time for myself? How can I maybe even combine my private life with my business life? Can I have a dinner where I invite friends and business partners? Can I have a party where I have my friends as well as my business partners there? And then that way I can have both. I can continue being successful with my business, but I can also, see my friends and have make memories with them together. So I think if you're starting your career thinking about how you can optimize your work-life balance, then you're probably not in the right career. Because if you are, you wouldn't be thinking about it.
That's a very good advice. And what was the best feeling being a young founder?
I mean, honestly, Machi, there's so many great things about to being a young founder. I think probably the best thing about is being young, right? I mean, you're young, you don't have a family that you need to take care of. You don't have massive bills lining up for your mortgage or something like that, but you have freedom and you have a blank canvas, and you can fail and you can try it again in 2 years if you failed. So I think, I just having this freedom of having nothing to lose is very inspiring and very empowering. And I don't think there's a better time to be a founder than when you're young. And, yeah, honestly, I think also the chance to try out things, to be unconventional, is also great, right? Because you've never done this before, so you can figure out how can you do it in a way that is different from everybody else. How can you do this in a way that's better than everybody else has ever done it, right? So I think these are all things, this energy of being young, I think these are all things that are great for being a founder.
Yeah. Was there any moment where like you're sitting at the beach and feel like, oh, I couldn't do it ever with a normal, regular job?
I mean, like I said, I think if you enjoy what you're doing, you can do anything. So, I mean, in the end, if you're employed or self-employed, again, that should also be an afterthought. The first thought should be, how can I, pursue this passion of mine, right? And if it's this, like for me, my passion was always, telling stories and creating TikTok videos and using social media to touch people. And I just didn't have a place back at the time where I felt like I could fulfill this passion. If there would have been a Marswalk back in the days, I surely would have been an employee at that place, or I would have wanted to be one of the first employees to kind of help build this thing up. But since I didn't have it, I needed to build it myself, right? But I easily would have joined a company that would have stood for the same values that Marswalk stands for. So I think it's not about, okay, I could never be an employee, or I can only be a founder. I'm something better than all of these regular employees. I need to be the boss. I'm the founder. I'm made for something bigger. That's not, I think that's ego, and that's not really what you should have your life decided by, but you should rather think about, okay, where can I fulfill this passion? Where do I feel like I can learn the most? Where do I feel like I'm drawn to? Where do I feel like I can improve in my craft? And if you have an employer that kind of, there's amazing companies out there that I would love to work for. I don't know. I would have loved to work for the Googles or Apples back in the day, I wouldn't love to work for OpenAI, right? If OpenAI, if I wouldn't have founded Marswalk and OpenAI would have been founded at the same time, I might have joined OpenAI, right? I mean, there's great companies out there where you can really learn a lot, but at the same time, if there's no company for you out there at the time that does what you're passionate about the way you want to do it, then you should maybe just take things into your own hands.
I think you struck a very interesting conversation, because most of the time we talk about, should I start my own company? Should I become self-employed? But we never think about, okay, am I in the right industry?
Yeah.
What am I passionate about?
Yeah. Are you passionate about what you're doing, right? I mean, you're passionate about art, right? Yeah. And nobody can do the things that you're doing right now. So it totally makes sense for you to be self-employed and have your own company in that space. But what you're doing is you're giving other young people that were like you 2 years ago, that are passionate about art, you're also giving them a place where they can fulfill their passions, right? So, I mean, I think that's something that you must never forget, right? Yeah. You're not on this planet to create the maximum amount of money for yourself and just or become the biggest, the people the person everybody looks up to. That's just, that happens as a side effect to fulfilling your passion, right? In the first place, you'd really care about, okay, I want to make the greatest marketplace for art. I want to make the best campaigns on TikTok, right? And if I'm in the best, if I can do it the best way by being an entrepreneur, then I need to be an entrepreneur. But if I'm more effective being an employee or being a manager or being a salesperson or being a creative director, then I should do it in this function, I think function needs to follow form.
Yeah. And I think we don't have to always say that we have to improve something in the world, because sometimes we just have to adapt the world to its current needs.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's also what I'm saying. I mean, I'm saying think about how you can make things better, but also think about the things that you're passionate about. Because, I mean, there's so many issues you could be working on. Yeah. Climate change, world hunger, wars. There's so many things that you could be working on. But, I mean, in the end, you have certain skills and you have certain passions, and you also need to be aware of them. So if I have a problem seeing blood, I wouldn't be the best doctor, although that's a great profession,
Obviously, there's a
right?
funny story to it because
Yeah.
my mom always wanted me to become a doctor.
Yeah,
And there has been a time where I started to faint when I seen blood. And like, Mom, I
same
cannot
here.
go
Yeah.
into it professional.
Yeah, right. I mean, same for me. My family's mainly consists of doctors, and I was always sure, like, I can't see blood. I don't want to be responsible for people's lives, right? Although that's a great profession and you really have a great impact,
Yeah.
that just wasn't for me. But I was always passionate about, making stories, creating videos, doing movies. That was always my passion from when I was young, and I figured, how can I use this thing in order to improve the world a bit?
Yeah, I think you did.
I hope I'm trying to. I'm trying to.
Yeah, and what is one part of your journey that do you think people misunderstand about you?
Some people think that I came from a very wealthy environment, or came from a rich household or something. That's actually something that some people think about me. But I mean, to be frank, I think we really grew up very middle class, lower middle class. I grew up without my dad, just with I was raised by my mother. Me and my brother, we both grew up in a small flat. Remember, we had like 70 square meters for 3 people. My room was, first I shared a room with my brother, then I got my own room, which was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 square feet. So it was very, very small space. I'm almost 6'5", so I'm always like 195, right? And it was tough for me to like fit a bed in there. So we didn't have a lot of money. We couldn't go on vacation a lot. We had maybe like 1 vacation a year somewhere in Austria. Every second year we'd be able to fly to Greece for a week or something like this, but we wouldn't be able to have the clothes. I remember my classmates were all wearing these Abercrombie and Fitch brand name T-shirts, and I would wear like H&M T-shirts, right? Because my mom couldn't afford it, right? She was really working hard to support both me and my brother. And although in my family, like I said, there's a lot of doctors, it is not the case that my mom was one, and she just worked in a hospital. She worked for my aunt who was a doctor. So, it was sometimes tough to make ends meet. And I think that's also something that motivated me to pursue this, so I can, give back to my mother, because she worked very hard to raise me and my brother all by herself, I think that's also something that really drove, like I said, and like I mentioned in the beginning, that kind of like drove this hunger in me to give back and to reward her for all the hard work that she's put into us.
Man, you're making me emotional. I think you're the first guest ever doing that. Do you think the hunger also comes from that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I really believe that when you've grown up and you've experienced what it's like not being like everybody else, right? I mean, I went to a school where there was a lot of kind of like more affluent people that had big houses, where they could go on big vacations with their children, or whether children went with their parents on great vacations, right? Every year. I think it motivates you to be like, okay, like, how can I also be able to do these things eventually? How can I also be able to achieve this? And I think that's something that really, really motivated me, to never give up, to always give it 100%.
Yeah, and I think too many young people see it as a burden to like not having a lot of money, or their families don't have a lot of money. Because I think it can be also a blessing. Because you're sometimes also like way more joyful and emotionally connected through those stories later on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that not being poor or being relatively poor
I'm not saying that
is not a good thing, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and I really wish they had more money, and I wish they would, and I'm happy we have a great partnership with World Vision, for example, which is a global charity that's supporting people in for example, in Sudan right now, where it's like there's a big war, there's really a big hunger crisis, right? Or we're supporting people in Myanmar, where there's also lots of wars, and the people that are really suffering from this are the children that are like, that can't go to school, that don't get food, that don't get an education, where their parents die in the war, something like this. And what World Vision does, and what I'm really thankful for, is that they collect money from different organizations and individuals, and they build schools there. They give these people they help these people fulfill basic needs. They rebuild villages that have been destroyed, And that's a great collaboration. We've been working with them since 3 years already, and we've have like 6, 7, 8 children that we get to support every year. And that's something, honestly, that's one of the greatest things. So I don't want to say that it's great to grow up in conditions like this, but if you're lucky enough to grow up in a Western country, and you're lucky enough to be in the environment that I was able to grow up in, but you're not as, I don't know, well off as your friends, then this is probably something that can also be a motivator to you later on. Yeah.
And for me, you were always like the most confident people I ever knew. Honestly, whenever we get into a like conversation or you pitched an idea during university, you always came off so confident. From where does this confidence come from? And are there also times where you feel insecure?
I mean, great question. I think people who never feel insecure are probably not honest. Like I think there's many times where I feel insecure, and I think it's nothing that's necessarily a bad thing. I think sometimes society frames this as like, okay, if you're insecure, it's not good. You always gotta be the man. You always gotta be the person that knows it all, right? But to be honest, I think it's also great to be open, to be vulnerable, and to be like, hey, I don't know this thing. I don't know how this works. And I don't know how to feel about this. I think that's also something that I had to learn over the years, that this is actually not something that you're supposed to hide, but you can just, walk around with openly. I do think my confidence really comes from just, believing that that my contribution is valuable. So I'm not a person that's just confident for the sake of being confident. I think you should be confident if you really know what you're talking about. You can be confident if you've done the research. You can be confident if you know what you're talking about, if you're an expert in your field. I think that's something that I'm a big fan of, especially in a business context, right? If you know a lot about a topic and if you know how to make things better, speak up. I think there's far too many people that have great ideas, have great inputs, but are not willing to speak their mind. While on the other hand, there's people that have no idea, but that just always feel like, okay, I'm the guy who knows it all. I'm the girl who knows it all. I need to be confident now. I just need to say something. I believe it's far better to just have a plan and build confidence from that. And that's what I'm always trying to do. I wouldn't describe myself as a person who needs to always be the center of attention, always needs to be the most confident person in the room. I think it's the most important thing is that for whatever you try to achieve, if you have the knowledge, if you've done the research, if you've done the work, then you can also be confident about it because, you've done what it takes.
Brilliantly spoken. Is there someone who is still trying to make proud?
That I'm still trying to make proud? I mean, like I said, my mom. I totally want to make my mom proud. That's very important for me. I told her once that I'm going to buy her a house, and I'm on the way of doing that. I have not quite achieved it yet. House prices in Austria and Vienna are rising, so it's more difficult. But I promised this to her when I was 8 years old, and I keep to this promise. I recently spoke to her about it. She's like, Victor, I didn't know you meant it that way. It's not necessary. You don't need to do this. Like, I gave you this promise when I was 8. I want to do this. I'm going to buy you a house. Because that was also her dream, having a house with her own garden so she could, plant trees and something like this there. And that's something that I really want to do. And then in the end, it would be myself. I want to make myself proud. I want to go down in history as somebody who's really been able to improve the way this world works and change lives and change organizations. And yeah, that's eventually probably the second person that I'm trying to make proud.
And there were times where, especially politics, for example, tried to ban TikTok. And I mean, your company consists on supporting companies to get on those platforms. Now, I heard you're also trying to do different other fields, but were you afraid in those days? Or
Sure. I mean, we're definitely scared how things are going to continue because our business is very much focused on this platform. And we always believed that, TikTok was not a bad thing, but it was actually a good thing. It was a new platform that changed the way how people consume media. And it allowed brands to present themselves in a new light, more authentic, less picture perfect, but more real. And so we always believed in the power of TikTok. And then so when we heard the news that President Biden wanted to ban TikTok, we were quite scared, and we really figuring out, okay, how can we shift our business, or how can we change our business in case this should happen? Luckily, this never happened. And at the moment, we're in a position where we're consulting brands across platforms. So we're not only focused on TikTok, but we're looking towards what's the best platform for the use and the use case for this brand in this time. So we're really thinking, we have a multi-platform approach in the end. And so if TikTok were to get banned today, we wouldn't be in a necessarily dire situation. But again, I believe from the bottom of my heart that TikTok has a unique position, is important for this world, and it's good that we have this new platform here, because that kind of also takes away from this picture perfect Instagram and makes brands more, like I said before, vulnerable and approachable for a young generation.
So if Marswalk would disappear tomorrow, which it won't,
doesn't.
who would you be without the founder identity?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I would just be a guy that's trying to tell stories, that's trying to touch other people through storytelling and through videos. And if there was no Marswalk and there was no TikTok, maybe I would be doing Netflix,
Yeah. And when people will talk about Victor Vecsei in 5 years' time, what do you want them to talk about?
I guess I would want them to say that, I improved their lives to some extent, whether that's by changing the way they thought about an issue, or whether that's through giving them a job and helping them, become the best version of themselves, or whether that's somebody who's, got inspired by my story, inspired to found their own business, or, start their own journey with TikTok or with social media, or whether that's a client who, got promoted because he was able to run a campaign with us, and that was very successful, and now he's in a better position, now he's promoted, now he's able to, have more power in his job. Or whether that's just, a friend or a person on the street that I get to inspire with my story and with my positive outlook on life that I get to touch. I think that's something that I would probably want to say, that changed people's life to some extent, changed people's lives.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up this conversation, I would like to do a rapid fire review.
Let's go.
Where you have to answer in either one word or one sentence.
Gotcha.
So first one, a belief about Gen Z you wish boomers understood.
They are not as lazy as people think.
A belief about boomers you wish Gen Z respected.
Which Gen Z respect?
Yeah. Or understands.
That they don't understand, or that they understand?
Now, a belief about boomers that you wish Gen Z would understand.
They have an important role in the society.
One thing you want people to stop pretending about in marketing.
Print advertisements work well.
A personal ritual you swear by.
First hour of the day, no phone.
That's a very important one. And I think we had a very wonderful conversation today. And one last question I would like to ask. Was there any question I didn't ask, but you would like to answer?
I mean, I think we talked about a lot of important issues today. Something that we could still touch upon would probably be, how social media was going to develop with AI. I think that's something that's really interesting to a lot of people at the moment. And what I believe is that AI is probably going to change the way we consume media, and we consume social media forever. So I think AI is about to have the greatest impact on business any new invention ever had. And I'm very excited that we get to already implement first AI ideas and campaigns with our existing clients, and that we have clients that are open to these new developments. And I think everybody should look into AI, should look how they can use it to make the world a better place. I think there's plenty of opportunity out there.
Thank you very much for sharing your story with us, for sharing the Marswalk story with us. It was a pleasant time, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me, Machi. It was great.
Victor.
Thank you.